to the She Leads podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Garland, CEO and founder of She Leads Media, a global media company dedicated to the advancement of women leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide. I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU and Rice University, where I teach on the topic of entrepreneurship. I'm a mom to two wonderful young men and married to my best friend from college. Join me each week as I dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women entrepreneurs and leaders. My hope is that these conversations and their advice will encourage you to put yourself out there and gain the visibility that you and all women deserve. We're all about stripping away the sugar-coated conversations and moving boldly in the direction of our magnificent dreams. For far too long, women have been conditioned to soften their words, modify their actions, and show up in the world to conform to outdated at best and harmful at worst cultural norms and ideals. Why? To keep those who are outside of the power structures from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence. This has prevented women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. The She Leads podcast is here to shine the light on all the incredible women, to encourage us to show up, speak up, and showcase the amazing work we do. Speak with confidence about the innovative and transformational thoughts that we have, and celebrate the positive impact that we are making in this world, both personally and professionally. So let's do this. Let's lead. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. I am so excited to welcome my next guest. Her name is Nasrin Yafari, and she's the founder, CEO, and designer of Mixed, a Brooklyn-based printwear brand inspiring you to be seen in full color. Founded in the summer of 2021, Mixed has grown into a mid-seven-figure brand with an engaged online and in-person community. And the reason that I found Mixed and Nasrin is that I was scrolling through Instagram and her account just jumped out at me. She was strutting down wearing the most beautiful jumpsuit that I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I need this jumpsuit and I need to talk to Nasrin. So welcome to the She Leads podcast.
Hi, Adrienne. Thank you so much for having me. Your voice is also so perfect for podcasts.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I love doing this. It's so much fun. And I just think that it's like I've sort of found my, because I love talking to people and I love interviewing super creative people like you. And we just were chit-chatting and I found out that you went to NYU, which is so cool. And that's where I went as well. So we are NYU alum. Yay, NYU. So take us back. You started this brand Mixed in 2021. Post-pandemic. I'm sure that was a little bit of an inspiration. But why don't you take us back to the NYU years and let us know a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure thing. So NYU, wow. So I moved to New York and NYU when I was 18, and I came from LA. And I went to NYU actually for education because I was on a completely different path back then. My dream was to start a school. And so I was really studying like the politics and economics of education. I was volunteering at multiple schools. I went and I worked full time in a school several years after graduating NYU. So fashion really didn't have any place in the roadmap. I think building an organization, whether that was like a school or a company, has resonated throughout my journey since the beginning. But definitely like the way that it has panned out with Mixed was quite unexpected.
I love that because so many of us start down a certain path and we think that we need to stick to that path, especially, you go through school and you spend all this money on your education. And so in a lot of ways you feel like, well, I need to stick to that because I've just invested all this time, money, effort into this one thing. But do you find that much of what you learned applies in what you're doing today?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some common threads. I think the reason I wanted to really go into teaching and education was that I loved learning and growing and doing things with people. And through being a teacher, you learn how to communicate, you learn how to tell stories, you learn how to engage people. And I think a lot of that translates really to brand building. And it makes sense that I enjoy brand building with my background, I think, as a teacher and in education. Yeah. So I think that there are definitely those common threads. And even back to, what you were saying about feeling like you need to stay on the path that you started on. I completely understand that, especially when you're spending a lot of money going to, an expensive college to get a certain degree. So it can be difficult to kind of veer off the course because you feel like, you owe it to yourself, to your family to see that through. And I think, once I decided to leave education, what I started to do then was really just follow my curiosity. And I would, what's calling to me today? Let me do that thing. Let me experiment with it. And if the result is positive and it seems like there are signs of life, then I'm going to keep going down that path. And that's really kind of how Mixed started, was really as face masks in the pandemic, this really kind of small scale way to get into textiles, to get into physical products, to get into manufacturing. That was working. And so I just took that thread further and further. And that ended up into like a full, fashion brand.
Wow. So many people pivoted during the pandemic and chose a similar path where they, made the face masks and everything. But that's quite a jump from making a face mask into these beautiful jumpsuits, all of these different vibrant colors. And to me, Mixed, it also has a very uplifting and inspirational message for women behind it. So can you talk a little bit about that? I also do want to understand, was there a point in the journey through education? Did you want to try something new out of frustration? What was that? Why did you want to pursue something new?
Yes, a couple different reasons. So I think being in the education space, what I wanted to do is I wanted to start a school that was really based on a different kind of curriculum model. And as I became a teacher, I kind of realized the very real institutional constraints that are on education that make it really difficult to kind of execute the type of ideas that I had that I would have liked to do in a public setting. In a public education setting. And that was one piece. And then another piece was, personally, I'd lost my mom during that time. And I think when you lose a loved one, it really just changes your perspective and your priorities. And I kind of looked around at my school and I didn't look to anyone and feel like I want to be in her shoes or in their shoes. And for me, that it just felt like there wasn't more runway ahead that I was really excited about. And so for that reason, I decided to leave. Those reasons.
What you just said is sort of exactly what I said to myself. I was working at one of the big four accounting firms in the marketing division. And, the people that were higher up were partners, women partners. And I looked around at them and I was like, I do not want to be them. I don't.
Yeah.
And it was the reason that I left too and started my own business, because you don't think about that, I think, when you start out, but it's like, that is where you're going. Yeah. So I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And that's a good thing, right? That taking the chance to go down a different path, and it's so bold what you did, like, let me follow what's happening inside. That's a very bold move, and one that I feel like as women, we don't do enough. We don't trust our gut and follow that thread because we're so afraid of failing or not knowing what's next and not being 100% sure. So I just love that you did that. And then you did something very useful, right? Like, everybody needed masks and they wanted at some point them to look good, right? But then, making, and I want to also just acknowledge, it's awful, like losing a parent, especially a mom as a girl, like it sucks and there's no way around it. So I'm so sorry that it just sucks. But I'm sure your mother would be incredibly proud of you. I'm sure she always was. But I'm sure she would be even more proud of you than I'm sure that she was. But how did you make the jump from making masks into just even making an item of clothing? Because that's a very different proposition.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mask was a nice segue because there was I got some proof that I can make a physical product, I could sell it, people wanted to buy it, and people liked the prints. And so because I started manufacturing, so I started out hand cutting, hand sewing all the masks. And then the demand got too big. And so I started working with a manufacturer. And the great thing was that working with a manufacturer on this really simple, small product was a kind of a nice segue into understanding how clothes work. And so initially for the very first collection, I worked with a woman who I met on Instagram, who she just really loved the brand, and she was a pattern maker. So she was the one who would make, I would design the sample, but she would make the technical pattern and actual physical sample. And so I'm not one to necessarily collaborate with people quite easily, but, I saw her work and I could tell the integrity of her character and her work ethic. And so, so she made the initial samples for me. So that first collection, everything was brand new to both of us. So I would sketch these designs and we would get on, and I never met her, so she was in Texas and I'm in New York. So we would get on these Zoom calls and I would show her the images and with the notes. And I would say, this is how I wanted to drape. This is how I wanted to fit. This is the vision. And she would just take my words and that image, and she made a physical sample. And so she's actually the person who made that classic jumpsuit that you still see today, our bestseller. Just so much of her time and effort went into that and really paid off. So that was kind of the initial collection. And from there, it just become easier. Now I understand how to what fabrics work with what silhouettes and, how to adjust fit and sizes and, every collection. I think I've lost track now of how many collections we've done. It might be the spring is coming out in March and that might be our seventh collection. Eighth?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Good. It's good to lose track. That's amazing. Congratulations. So can you talk a little bit, because it is so fascinating, right? And listen, there is so much that goes into building a business, especially a business where you're manufacturing a variety of different sizes, the clothing, fashion, and just being able to produce everything. And I know that there's been supply chain issues and all of that kind of stuff, which you need to think about, right? And you need to learn about along the way. So can you talk a little bit about the patterns that you designed, because they are really beautiful and unique and different? And then why did you pick a jumpsuit to start with?
Yeah. So the prints that I designed them all on Procreate. This is what I would suggest to any designer who's interested in, maybe textile design. It's a super simple and low cost program. I use an iPad and an Apple Pencil, and I just, get to drawing. In terms of the jumpsuit, I've always just been a jumpsuit person. I love that it is one and done dressing. You put it on, you have your full outfit ready to go. There's not too much styling. You could just style with maybe some accessories and the shoe and maybe a bag if you want to go even that far. But it's just, I love that it's functional, but it's still very striking. And that's always kind of been my taste, is though sometimes I really do like to layer and I style and accessorize, I'm very simple and impactful. And I feel like jumpsuits really allow me to do that. And I think, even as with what I do, with the work that I do, I'm quite busy, and the jumpsuit just really allows me to throw it on and get going, but still feel good, still feel confident. And then I think from a marketing perspective, I didn't realize when I started, but the jumpsuit really, it's great from the marketing perspective because it's a full outfit. So visually, it's very striking on a user's eye. And rather than a shirt, because a shirt is just half of an outfit, and a shirt you still have to style. A shirt you have to find the right bottoms to wear with it. The jumpsuit it's a full outfit. It's really visually striking for anyone who's scrolling through social media. And also I find that people who wear jumpsuits are a certain kind of personality. And when they see jumpsuits, they're like, oh, that's me. I'm a jumpsuit person. And so I think that really helped with creating this initial targeting and an initial niche audience for the brand.
Did you know that going in?
No.
That was like a discovery.
Yeah, that was a discovery. It was the jumpsuit being, really true to me and my style that was just true to my style.
Yeah.
But the kind of marketing benefits from that, I realized later.
Oh, that is so interesting. And I love the title that is on your website, and your website is striking, right? The colors, the vibrancy, just the photography, and it says step into who you're becoming. Like, oh my God. It's so good. The jumpsuits are so feminine but yet strong. And so
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned like a jumpsuit person is a jumpsuit person. And I get it. I get it. What type of woman is attracted to a jumpsuit so that she could step into who she's becoming? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's somebody who is stretching themselves, who's challenging, who they are today, who they want to become tomorrow, and really working towards that, whether that is about, pivoting careers, whether that's about leaving a certain relationship and kind of growing personally beyond that. Whether it's, taking a risk and maybe leaving a job that you don't quite love. Every Sunday, I write a newsletter, and this started from the very beginning of the brand. That's a very personal, kind of like a blog style that has nothing to do with clothes, has nothing to do with anything we're selling. It's just talking about different musings that, loosely revolve around stepping into who you're becoming and embracing that mixedness. And so it's been a really interesting part of the brand because, I started writing those Sunday emails just from the perspective of like kind of logging how I was building the brand and what I was going through. And it's been really a common thread, I think, for people that come through our studio during our events, or, if I meet someone on the street, because oftentimes I do around the city, and they'll say like, I read this email and it really resonated and I sent it to my friend, or I read this email and I printed it out and I put it on my fridge. And I think that this community really values that kind of the deeper, like what you're picking up on, the deeper meaning behind the brand and kind of the values that the clothes embody.
I just absolutely adore that. And you continue to send these out. People can just kind of sign up on your website to get those Sunday emails.
Yeah, they can just sign up on the website, get the Sunday email.
Amazing. Okay, well,
There's
definitely
some blogs on the site as well.
Okay, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. So what you were always conscious of community, right? And the education system. And I think we all know that it definitely, it oh my gosh, I'm like, I could go off on a tangent, but I do think
Sure.
that so much needs to change, and what is being taught still is not helpful for where we're evolving into as a society. I mean, just some of the things that we're even talking about right now, entrepreneurship, leaning into creativity, finding out what our gifts are. We don't need to necessarily memorize whatever battle happened on whatever hill, because it doesn't really have any it doesn't have any relevance, and it doesn't help. Maybe it helps us think and remember facts, but there's so much technology now that can take the place of that. And so I do think that we as human beings are, I guess, morphing into more creative individuals. The facts are there. We don't need to hold them in our brains anymore. Our brains can be used to find those really beautiful connections between things so that we can be much more creative and innovative and all of that. I do see, what comes through your brand. And I think one of the reasons that I was so attracted to it is because it very much speaks to me as a woman, but it's also not highly, feminized. There's a power behind it. And I hate the word empowered. I actually hate it because I feel like it's, you don't have power and then someone has to sort of give it to you or have to take it, but we all have it, right? And so why are you focused on creating something that is for women? Like, what about that? Because that's who everybody is that you're talking to. We're all women in the audience. I'm sure there's some guys that listen that are, friends and supporters, but the majority of the audience are women entrepreneurs. And I do believe that we're so powerful and we haven't fully expressed that power. Why are you helping women to express their power in this way? Why women? Why not? Why didn't you start designing for men?
I mean, I guess the reason I didn't start designing for men is because I just don't, that's not my experience and I wouldn't even know how to do that. I think, I didn't necessarily set out to think about like, how do I specifically empower women? I think it was more so coming from my own place. What do I know? What is my story? And kind of sharing that. And I think it happens to resonate with women. Mm-hmm. I grew up like with my mom being very sad and my mom is like a quite sad person and felt very trapped, or I thought her to be very trapped in the situation that she was in her marriage and unhappy with her life. And I think when I was younger, I kind of soaked that up like a sponge, and something inside me was kind of like, I really don't want to be in that position. Yeah. Where if I'm unhappy with my life, that I don't have the ability to change it, both from a guts perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And so that's really big for me and something that I really value building for myself, having the guts to, follow the thread, so to speak, and then to build something where I have, my own financial security. And I think because a lot of the brand just kind of, it comes from me and my real lived experience. I think that's maybe what translates in the messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because again, I do believe that so many people can, like that resonates with so many people. They can relate to it. We grew up, and I mean, it continues to this day, but things are changing. But we did grow up where, women felt that they were in situations that they couldn't get out of. And financially, it was true, right? I mean, I think back, my mother, my father passed away when I was young, and my mother, she couldn't buy a car on her own.
Yeah.
So my mom went the opposite way. She was like, if you don't sell me a car, screw you. I'm going to go find a place that will sell me a car without my husband's signature, because it's so stupid and so mind blowing. But like, I saw that and I was a young child, like, wait a minute. And so I just think, so many of us absorbed something and then we tried to push against that. And I think that's been great for the progress of women and, doing things like you're doing and just really leaning into, you may not have had formal training, but look at you. I mean, you've created an incredibly successful brand. That is so inspiring. It really, really is. And not just because you're fabulous, but because, you put in the work and you trusted yourself. And I'm sure that if for some reason it didn't lead you to this, I'm sure that you would have found the thing, whatever that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the message too that I am getting from everything that you do is that there are certain gifts that we all possess that unless we pay attention to them, they may never show up, right? And just because we have one passion in one area doesn't mean that other passions don't exist.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's about discovering them, but then also executing against them over a long period of time.
Yes.
And I think that oftentimes, I think there's lots of cycles in work and life. But, when you first launch something and you start something, it's really exciting. It's very sparkly. It's very lighthearted. You have lots of encouragement. Everyone around you is excited because it's new. And then you get into inevitably a moment, you move forward and it's not new and shiny anymore. And it goes through a dip. Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of jump ship on the dip and then they start somewhere else and then they start the whole process over again and they never get past that dip. And so I have felt many times, building Mix, that I went through a dip, whether it was just kind of a slump where it was kind of felt a little bit gray, like, not so much energy is flowing through me in the brand. And sometimes the dip was just like really difficult, like having to do layoffs, having to turn everything around. Like But you have to move through that to continue exercising against that gift, to then develop skills on top of it and, stamina. And I think that is really what at the end of the day separates the people who can really step into that fully and people who don't.
I love the way that you said that. It's so true. It's a marathon, right? And you can't give up when it's hard. I mean, sometimes in class, we do have this conversation, like, especially because I teach entrepreneurship and questions get asked, like, when do you know that it's time to give up, right? Because there definitely are times. It's like you might experience that dip and yes, you want to keep going, but you also might say, well, maybe it really is time to do something different. And I don't have an answer for it. I think you just try and you tap into your gut and you get advice from really great people that you surround yourself with and you make a choice.
Yeah. And I think there's also definitely signals we get from the environment. If you are starting a business, for example, and you're working at it for, however long and you've gotten 0 sales, then that's probably a signal that the market doesn't want what you're offering or you have to change, So I think that it's a combination of your kind of gut feeling and also the signals you're getting from the environment.
I love that.
And being honest about them.
Exactly. And sometimes that's very difficult because we fall in love with what it is that we're doing and we think everything is so great. We're so excited about it. And it might not always be the right product market fit. So where is the future of Mixed? Where are you going? How are you growing? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really exciting. This is a really peak season for Mixed as we enter into spring, summer. This year, this year we're doing full 4 seasonal collections and we're on pace to do, I would say like mid 7 figures. So looks like a $5 million brand, profitably bootstrapped. And I'm looking to this. So what we've done really well is spring, summer. And because we're really colorful, our fabrics are, and silhouettes are really suitable for the warm weather. But what I'm really excited about hopefully being able to do this fall, winter is going into proper outerwear, getting into maybe some faux leather, faux fur, doing coats, and just doing more warm weather attire. And I'm really curious to see how to really transition the brand from just a spring, summer. I mean, we are a year-round brand. I'm just saying our seasonality is better currently in the warmer months.
Sure.
But I would love to bring that color and the pattern to fall, winter in a way it's not going to look the same as spring, summer, but how do we still like bring in some color for the fall? How do we do that on heavier and warmer textiles? So that's really my goal, I think, for this year is to really just have Mixed feel like a full year-round brand at scale. And from an internal organization perspective, I've learned a lot in terms of how to keep a lean operating OpEx costs, a lean team, lean payroll. So working with some people internally, but a lot of it is being done with contractors and agencies. And
awesome.
It's exciting.
That is so exciting. And I cannot wait because I just think that outerwear, it's, black, dark blue, like maybe you'll get a metallic in there once in a while, but you look around and everybody's the same. So I am very much looking forward to vibrant colors, patterns on the streets of New York City. That's a dream. Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule and your design schedule and all of that. And I know that the audience really loved this conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey and congratulations on all of your success so far and where you're going. I cannot wait to see everything new that's coming out. And if people do want to, there's definitely some students that are listening in, some women that I'm sure would want to talk to you. How can people either get in touch with you or just find out a little bit more about you and Mixed?
Yeah, sure. You can email me at Nasrin at mixedbynasrin.com. You can reach out on Instagram, mixed_by_Nasrin, or my personal, which is Nasrin Harumi, which is my middle name. I'm sure that'll maybe be linked in the episode. But, our studio is based in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So it's quite an open space. We host events in here. We'll do shopping events, but also things more like panels and meet and greets and things like that. So I'm very open. build relationships. We work with some people locally as well. So it's a really great, I would say, community space and hub in addition to being our studio and showroom and warehouse.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so very much. And hopefully I will be coming to that studio soon. I can't wait to make a trip out there, and I can't wait to get myself one of those jumpsuits. I just can't decide which one.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Adrienne.
Thank you. This and all of our episodes are brought to you by the She Leads Podcast Network, the podcast network for women, by women. Thanks so much for listening to the She Leads podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support us, please share it with others, make a personalized post about what you took away on social media, and please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. This helps our guests and our show to continue to gain visibility and traction. To learn more about how She Leads Media helps women to gain visibility, you can follow us on Instagram at She Leads Media, or you can head on over to sheleadsmedia.com. If you'd like to network with me and other amazing women, don't forget to join us each year for the She Leads Live conference. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.